the system that just ain't right. Gonna tear it down, gonna start a fight. Anarchy and numbers is my game. I'm the investor with no shame. Greed and corruption, that's the name of the game they play. It's all a shame. I won't play by their rules, I won't comply. Anarchy's the way. It's time to fly. I burn down the walls and break the chains, shatter the illusion, expose their games.
And here we go. Welcome. I'm Matt. This is the Anarchist Investor live. Stop me if you've heard this one. You will own nothing and be happy. It's two parts. You will own nothing, but it's okay. You're going to be happy about it. What am I talking about today? Today, I am talking about what has basically been dominating most of the crypto world news over the last couple of days. Obviously, on the hold screen, I had up the chart of Ethereum. Ethereum caught a big price spike because apparently the SEC is now all of a sudden pro-crypto. Yay! Yeah. The SEC loves crypto. That can't go wrong. Yeah, so there's going to be an Ethereum ETF. We already have a Bitcoin spot ETF. There's going to be an Ethereum spot ETF. Money is going to rain down from the heavens, and investors are going to pump crypto to the stratosphere. And this is all just going to be a party for everyone involved. Well, let me take the role as I normally do. And I'm thinking that maybe Fridays need to be like tinfoil hat Fridays. Like, I think that might be the theme going forward, because that just seems to be the way, like, that's where my brain goes. Fridays are options expiration day. So I think, like, I typically don't end up drawing very many conclusions from the market action on Friday. So Friday might just be tinfoil hat Friday. And this is most definitely a tinfoil hat Friday. I'm going to pee in everyone's Cheerios. It's just, it has to be done. I'm sorry. That's basically what's going to happen today. And we're going to follow through kind of this, or at least I'm going to bring you through this line of logic. All right. I will be interviewing Aaron Day coming up here at the end of next week. And so in about week and a half, I'm going to have that interview out. And I'll actually note one of Aaron Day's videos here coming up. But with the case with Roger Ver, with what Aaron Day is talking about, the interview that I just did, at least part one that I did with Patrick Smith, we've been talking about essentially the hijacking of the crypto space and the fact that crypto is being turned into, it was supposed to be this liberating force, and it's actually being turned into just another means of enslavement. And in fact, it's such a beautiful technology. It's such an incredibly powerful technology that the ability for it to enslave is like orders of magnitude higher than all of the rest of the stuff that the would-be tyrants and enslavers and slave masters had at their disposal in the past. And I would liken it to other huge technological advances in the past, right? Nuclear energy is a perfect example. The ability to bring, the entire world, like, just ridiculous amounts of free clean energy, or at least cost-effective clean energy. And the tyrants and the evildoers used it to basically vaporize human beings and consolidate political power, right? Had never been accessible prior to that, and they used it to be one of the most destructive forces on the face of the planet. Well, it's happening again. And this is kind of a wake-up call of sorts. Again, it's not a very uplifting message, but it has to be done because there's a lot of people out there that operate under some really ridiculous philosophical, frames of reference that lead them to believe that just everything's going to be hunky-dory, and it just isn't. Here's what I'm going to lead with. And immediately people are going to be like, you're such a conspiracy theorist. Well, yes, I am, because I'm willing to entertain the things that other people aren't. And hopefully that helps. This is a documentary called The Great Taking. It was introduced to me by a buddy, and at first, you should definitely go watch it. It's like an hour and 11 minutes long, so it's not like a huge time commitment. It's not like hours and hours and hours. The dude who wrote this, I believe his name is David Rogers Webb, outlines regulatory changes and things like that that have happened over time, a lot of which originated in like 2000 with the dot-com bubble bursting, or 2001, and then followed through in 2008 during the great financial crisis. And it kind of follows the legal framework of how institutions and very kind of like tyrannical top-down institutions, specifically the federal government as well as Wall Street in conjunction with them as that kind of like top of the managerial class in our society, how they would or are changing the legal definitions of things, the legal status of certain types of things, specifically investments. If you remember back, back in the day, if you've read a history book or whatever, you remember that, stocks, like, owning a piece of a publicly traded company, or at least any company, you would get an actual certificate, like a paper certificate that said, you bear an equity position or an ownership stake in this organization. Same thing with bonds. Like if you lent money, you would get a bearer bond, and the bond was a piece of paper. And in order to get your money back at the end, like you would get your payments, your coupons every month or quarter or whatever. But then at the end, in order to get the full amount of the bond back, the face value, you had to present that piece of paper. And then they would punch holes in it or whatever in order to kind of like invalidate the claim after they paid you your money. Well, that doesn't exist anymore, right? Like, when was the last time you bought a stock or a bond or anything that you were given some kind of physical representation of to say that you have a claim on that? Well, you haven't been, right? Everything is digitized now. And so within the Great Taking, it's outlined how it would happen, where if for any reason, with any excuse, if the managerial class, if the tyrants of the society wanted to just summarily take everyone's collected investments and assets and net worth, at least in terms of things like, stocks and bonds and those types of speculative investments, they would be able to, because they've essentially reclassified things so that under certain circumstances, and believe me, it would be in conjunction with some kind of emergency, right? Like there'd be a crisis or something that gets declared. And then, to save everyone, to save humanity, to save democracy, to save whatever, the Western world, the benevolent managerial class would have to assume everyone's investments and essentially just take them. Okay. So that's the premise of the documentary. Now, it goes to great lengths. It's possible that that's actually the truth. It's possible that it's at least founded on nuggets of truth. I mean, there's obviously a ton of research that went into that piece, but this kind of has the wheels in my head moving here, because at the very least, if that is something that is just being entertained by certain people, and just because people have risen to a certain level of power doesn't mean that they're forthright, right? It doesn't mean that they're of high moral standard or quality, right? Like it just means that they're powerful and they're rich and they're influential. That's it, right? It's not necessarily indicative of them being some great statesman or altruistic CEO or something like that, or the robber baron with a heart of gold, right? Like it's probably exactly the opposite. They're ruthless. That's how they got there, right? So from that standpoint, if this really is something that's going to end up happening, like what's the mechanism by which it would happen? Or how is it that the financial world is evolving, and then how would they have to evolve this process? Well, enter the SEC and the approval of Bitcoin and the Ethereum ETFs. Well, okay, so you have the SEC comes in and they go, okay, all right, we've resisted it for long enough, but guess what? Ethereum is now going to be an exchange traded fund. Normies can then buy it in their IRA or their 401k or whatever. And now, like I said, manna is going to rain down from heaven, and everyone's going to be wealthy as a result of it, because we're just going to inflate this bubble even more, and everyone's going to make out like kings. Well, the conventional wisdom in the crypto space is that we've won, right? Like the SEC had to acknowledge crypto is a thing and it's going to move forward, and it's this amazing, not just technology, it's a currency, right? Like, it's valid. We can now use it and not have to worry about the government, throwing us in a prison because, in the past it was like if you used Bitcoin in certain ways, they were going to, ask Ross Ulbricht how that works out, right? Well, the first question you have to ask is, did you really win? Right? Like, is this a winning move? Like, is this the SEC acquiescing? On Aaron Day's recent episode of his podcast, this is a freeze frame of that podcast, and he's looking at the crackdown that's happened from the government regulatory bodies on crypto. And here's my premise, right? Like, just looking at this screen, okay? Everyone thinks that government people are inept, right? I would say that they're lazy, not that they're inept, okay? But there's a handful of them that aren't lazy. There's a handful of them that are power hungry and wealth hungry and influence hungry people, and they're motivated, and they've deployed the regulatory framework of the United States government and weaponized it against the crypto industry. I mean, just look at this screen. SEC cracks down on 127 companies, illegal, quote unquote, illegal securities and exchanges. Department of Justice, coin mixing services, Samurai and Tornado were brought up on charges. And some of those people went to prison or are currently in prison. Let's see. The Federal Reserve System denied Custodia, targeted Silvergate and Signature for FedNow. So FedNow is one of the CBDCs that's about to be put into place and enacted. It's already been tested. The CFTC, 47 actions in 2023 targeting digital assets and specifically DeFi, decentralized finance. It just goes on and on and on. These organizations are obviously targeting, crypto, and this is not the environment of them being afraid of crypto. This is the environment of them trying to bring the crypto industry to its knees, to bring it in line and under control. So I bring you back to the story about the ETH ETF being approved. And the ETH ETF is not being approved because they're giving up and waving the white flag. There's no white flag. The white flag there is a white flag. It's on the part of the crypto industry. It's been normalized, right? The crypto industry is giving up. It's had to. All of the people that were would-be dissidents and innovators that were trying to, decentralize or at least disintermediate financial transactions away from the government and away from these regulatory organizations. They went, oh yeah, we'll just put you in a cage. We'll take all your money. We'll put you in a cage. And in some cases, we'll threaten your family and your loved ones and all this other stuff, right? Roger Ver is sitting in the same Spanish prison that John McAfee died in, right? I'm not gonna jeopardize my YouTube channel, but I have some very deep-seated opinions about what happened to Mr. McAfee. But this is not the actions of government organizations that are waving the white flag. They are in the driver's seat, and they've made sure that they are in the driver's seat before these things happen, right? You have bills right now that are being voted on and approved, and everyone's celebrating them as if they're pro-crypto bills, and they're not. They're anything but that. There's also other bills that are supposedly masquerading as anti-CBDC bills, centralized central bank digital currency bills, right? Like anti-central bank digital currency bills. And it's just window dressing on the Titanic. It's not stopping them from existing. It's just changing who has the oversight. So it's just a different, appointed bureaucrat that oversees it versus, say directly to the Federal Reserve or whatever, as if that gives some kind of, additional regulatory insight and control on the part of the people, right? No, it just changes who within the government gets to make the actual calls, right? And who has to be corrupted to benefit those people doing the corrupting. All right. So take this in context. The federal government's not rolling over and playing dead. The only reason why they're authorizing these things is because they now have a reasonable expectation that they are in control, right? So now, what's the difference between Ethereum and Bitcoin? Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency that's based off of a blockchain, and its original intent was permissionless, custodianed, disintermediated P2P financial transactions, right? Like pure currency slash money, right? Democratized, right? And decentralized money, right? That's already been hijacked, right? It's already been taken over. So what's the next step? Well, in the same vein as the Great Taking, the next step here is to understand why Ethereum is different than Bitcoin. Well, Ethereum, and most people will be like, well, Ethereum's the second biggest. So that's why Bitcoin was the first one they had to decide on, and Ethereum is the second biggest. So they have to decide on that. That's secondary in my mind. What's actually primary here is to understand what differentiates Ethereum from Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the first. Bitcoin set the precedent, right? Bitcoin is also the biggest. Yeah. So that had to be first. It's the biggest marketplace. And for them, it was the biggest place to raise funds through penalties and criminal fines and all this other stuff, as well as confiscation of Bitcoin, right? People forget federal government is one of, if not the largest holder of Bitcoin because they took it. Okay. So why is Ethereum different than Bitcoin? And if I can find the right tab, I can tell you. It's because of non-fungible tokens, all right? And not just non-fungible tokens. So Ethereum, you can think of Bitcoin as currency, the blockchain as a means for financial transactions. Ethereum is a blockchain that facilitates not just financial transactions, but contracts. Okay. So think of digital contracts where you have one entity and another, they're contracting with each other. It's not just transactional, there's other things happening, right? Sales of larger assets and things like that. Okay. The advent of Ethereum also brought about this idea of tokenization, that you can take anything and you can turn it into a non-fungible token. What does that mean? It means like your house could have a individual non-fungible token or multiple, right, that make up the overall value of your house, and you could own all of them, you could sell off pieces of them, right? Like there now becomes a digital asset that corresponds with a physical asset, right? Now there's also non-fungible tokens like, digital 8 pictures and, cypherpunk pictures and stuff like that, right? So there's ownership of digital assets wrapped up in this, but there's also been a big push to tokenize real world physical assets, like things you can put your hands on, right? Well, ask yourself this. If the SEC is now feels like they're in the driver's seat, along with the rest of the regulatory mechanisms, they feel like they're in the driver's seat here, right? And they're able to essentially steer these cryptos, if not outright control them. Do you feel comfortable in a world where most of your physical assets get NFT'd and the federal government is in control of them? So much so that, Aaron Days talked a lot about CBDCs in relationship to, say, like your social credit score and an individual everything ID like they have in China that associates all of this stuff, right? CBDC, so basically your own kind of like bank account. You can choose your own carrier, right? Like, so you could have a JP Morgan Chase issued ID that carries your CBDCs that are granted by the Federal Reserve, but go through JP Morgan as like the custodian or whatever, right? Again, completely anti-crypto. This is all intermediated stuff. It's not disintermediated, right? You would have this ID or card that essentially not just has your identifying information, but it's attached to your main source of funds, being your central bank digital currency. It's also tracking you everywhere you go, every purchase you make, everything that you engage in. And so, I mean, I've already covered it in the past. There were bank runs in China and there were protests planned. And the originators of the protests, the planners of the protests, couldn't get on a damn train or a bus because their ID red flagged them. Now they use the cover that, like, it was they were potentially exposed to COVID and that's why they couldn't travel, right? But surprise, surprise, the only day that they couldn't travel was the day that the protest was supposed to happen in the next province over. And they couldn't get on a bus or a train to get there, okay? So it's an ID that's attached to your person. It tracks you, and it also tracks your social credit score. How good of a slave are you? Right? Do you use too much carbon? Are you using less carbon? How do you use your daily activities? Are you being productive? Are you, doing the government's bidding? Are you at very least docile and not, inflammatory and that kind of thing? What do your social media posts say about you? Are you a potential thorn in the side of the people that are in control, or are you, a good little follower? Right? All of those things get wrapped up in that individual thing, right? What I think I haven't heard very many people connect the dots on here yet is, and this is what the Ethereum story comes into play here for me, is what if the ownership of your home was on there as an NFT? What if the ownership of your stocks and your bonds, the ownership of your IRA, your 401k, the ownership of hell, your bicycle or your car or your clothing, right? Like if it was all NFT'd and it all resided on that ID, do you even really own anything anymore? I mean, like, libertarians and anarchists like to joke about how, well, not joke, I mean, it's serious. Like, you don't really own property, right? Because if you don't pay your taxes, your property taxes, they come and take your property. That's not ownership. It's still rental, right? Like if you have to continue to pay some kind of fee, some kind of homeowner's fee to own your home, right? Like it's the most ridiculous thing. You have to pay a fee for the privilege of owning an asset. This takes it to the next level. And the next level is the moment that your home is NFT'd, they could just take it off of your account. Or they could say, well, sorry, you can't sell your house and move somewhere else until you raise your social credit score. We won't allow you to sell that asset. We don't trust you to sell it responsibly, right? Or you're dangerous. We don't know what you would do with those funds. So we're not going to allow you to sell the NFT that's attached to your home. You have to raise your social credit score higher. You have to reduce your carbon credits. You're a polluter. We're not going to allow you to go somewhere else and pollute more. You need to stay right here and learn your lesson. This shit's scary, bro. Like, I get that this is like Orwellian to the 9 millionth degree, right? This is like really Orwellian to such a high level. And it's like, does it actually end up playing out this way? Maybe not. But even if it ends up playing out, 20% of what this possible endpoint is, like, that's freaking scary. You legit don't own anything. You have, a digital token that basically says that you get to reside there. But when you go to sell it, you aren't the ultimate decider of whether or not you could sell it or what you could do with it. Rent it out or monetize it or whatever. And it's not just your house, it's everything, right? What happens when you have to like swipe your ID to get in your car to go drive somewhere? And they're like, "Where are you going?" And you have to put in your destination. And they say, "Yeah, that's not allowed. You can't go there." Right? There's wrong think happening over there. You're not allowed to go there. Right? Libertarians are gathering in Washington, D.C. right now for their convention. What would happen if all of them had a universal ID that was attached to their social credit score and CBDCs, and they had to swipe in their car, and they'd have to say, "I'm going to the Libertarian National Convention," and be like, "Those are extremists. You can't go there. Sorry. They all have low credit scores. We're not going to allow you to associate with those people anymore." Right? "Oh, I'm going to go drive to my friend's house. I'm going to go drive and see my dad," right? And you swipe your card. And then they go, no, sorry, you can't go see him. He's scary. He watches the wrong news programs. He boomer posts on Facebook about, the government being evil. No, you can't go see him. He's a bad influence on you, right? And not only that, if you keep trying to go, or if you go anyway, if they don't just shut down your car outright, if you go anyway, we're going to take all your shit because you have NFTs for it, but it's on your ID. And if we decide we just want to pluck it off of there because it's, in the best interest of society, right? It's part of the social contract. We have to protect society from you. Whew, man. That's some scary shit. I don't care who you are, right? And I mean, quite honestly, the more I hear about this, the more I'm like, we got to get like less technological with life. Like, this makes me want to buy more gold and silver and, plan for a less digitized life. Like, it really does. It's really freaking scary. Unless something else breaks, and I don't mean like, well, yeah, breaks, but, makes a change, right? Like, unless some other kind of like curveball gets thrown in here, the path to this does not seem outlandish to me. It seems very, I mean, put yourself in the position of someone who thinks that it's their job to guide society. They probably think this is very practical. They think it's very handy, right? It will make their job easier. They'll be able to, I mean, like, once you implement all of this stuff, CBDCs and all that kind of other stuff, I mean, you can literally enact whatever you want, right? Like say you're a property owner, and you want to rent to someone. So you own the NFT on a house or an apartment building, and you want to rent to someone else. And you're like, okay, I want to charge $500 a month for rent. Let's be realistic nowadays. I'm going to charge $2,000 a month for rent to this individual for the apartment that I own. Okay. I have the NFT on my real ID. All right. And the two of us are going to, like, either on our computer or real-time swipe at the same time in order to sign this contract. And then the system, the oversight system, looks at this and goes, you're a dangerous property owner, and we've found that your rates are too high. So we're not going to approve this contract. Would you like to approve a lease payment of $1,400 for this individual? Because they have a high social credit score, and we think they should be rewarded for that. And you have a lower social credit score, so we don't think you should have as good of a place to negotiate price. And so you deserve less, and they deserve, less of a payment as a benefit. So we'll approve that contract at $1,400, not $2,000. Could you imagine? Could you imagine if you were a property owner and you knew someone and you're like, I want to rent this to this person. We both agree on 2,000. We swipe, and then it goes, nope, sorry, that person has a low social credit score. They have dangerous political views. We don't want them to be able to live anywhere, right? Or we want them to live in the district that we put all of the social and political dissidents in, so they can't rent from you. Could you, like, holy shit. It's, I can't come up with a better analogy than nuclear energy and nuclear power technology. I can't, because this seems like that all over again, except instead of, a nuclear weapon that could take out a city, it's literally a nuclear weapon that could control and or demolish the entirety of civilization. Right? Like, and you could add whatever onto the top of this pile that you want, right? Like, AI is obviously going to be in there. They're not going to be able to parse all of this stuff by themselves manually. So they're going to need AI that's going to track all of this stuff and make those calls in real time. I'm, whew, man. I mean, doomsday preppers might not have it wrong. Right? Like, this is worrisome, man. And I'm someone who like I question my beliefs all the time because I don't want to be complacent in how I kind of have a worldview and where I see things. And it's like I typically refuse to get involved in politics now. I can't stand it. It's messy. It results in awful, awful things, right? But at the same time, how do you fight that? Right? The only other way to fight that is essentially isolationist, kind of activity in my mind. Um, I mean, you can try and live like a double life, like be a double agent and live in plain sight or hide in plain sight, right? And just play the game, but then figure out somehow to do what you actually want to do without, tripping any of the alarms, so to speak. But this is worrisome. Anyone who's like cheering this to say that like, crypto's coming into the mainstream or whatever, and it's becoming more accepted. The reason why it's becoming more accepted is because of stuff like this, right? It's like all of these different regulatory organizations have finally gotten their ducks in a row, and crypto innovation stagnated in terms of what would be able to neutralize this. It stagnated. And a lot of the money got diverted into shiny rocks, right? Like shiny things that got people paying attention to the number going up. It got people thinking that they were going to become billionaires. Well, what happens if you become a billionaire, but then the government says you're too dangerous to be a billionaire, so we're just going to take all of your Bitcoin? Could it not happen? I mean, I'm thinking it becomes more and more possible. Like I this is I would love to hear your opinion on it because I'm super duper freaking black pilled on this right now. This is like really worrying because stage 1 was bad enough. Stage 1 was keeping their stranglehold on currency, right? Stage 2 is not just tightening the grip, but like actually finding a grip on being able to control ownership of pretty much everything. Everything. If everything in your life, like every cheap piece of plastic and, every freaking tissue box and, every, computer uh, peripheral and, even your cold storage, if all of it is NFT'd, so that essentially the government knows at any point in time everything that you supposedly claim ownership to. They could literally take everything in an instant. Because all they got to do is move all those NFTs out of your account, and then someone with a gun shows up, right? Now, the difference is here that if you have physical possession of something, right, now we can have a discussion or an argument about ownership versus possession, okay? This is where some anarchists might actually be freaking brilliant because from their standpoint, if you are in possession of something and you can defend it, that is much more indicative of ownership than anything else. The question just becomes whether or not someone else with more force can come along and change that. But from this standpoint, with a lot of people that they have the mindset where like, well, I don't like the law, but that's what the law says, so I have no recourse, right? If you're in that group of people, which is the vast, vast, vast majority of people, this scenario works really easy in terms of control mechanism, right? Well, it might not be right, but that's the law, right? They stole the NFT. They sequestered or not sequestered. They assumed control or possession of my NFT to my house because I said something bad about the president. I made a mean tweet. And now they're going to take it. They've taken my NFT to my house. And they've given me permission to live in my house for a little bit longer, but in 3 weeks, I have to leave if I don't raise my social credit score, right? If I don't make amends and make a public apology and, whatever, do some more work to enslave some of my friends and family, right? If I don't do that, they're going to take my home. I've already lost claim to it because the digital asset that was in my, Federal Reserve or U.S. Treasury issued, wallet, CBDC wallet, it's not there anymore. Where did it go? Right? Like, whew, man, happy Friday. Happy tinfoil hat Friday. Look, I want to say thank you to everyone for making it through another week. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. I assure you, not all of my episodes are this dark, but yeah, during the week, I do a lot more going through the markets and kind of looking at different contrarian investments and things. So it would do me a whole heap of help if you threw me a subscribe or a like or an upvote or a follow. If you're listening to this on any podcatcher, please give me a review. That goes a long way towards helping the channel and myself. And remember that June 3rd, I'm giving away 4 paid annual memberships to the Anarchist Investor Substack. So you have to at least be a free subscriber to get in on that giveaway. So make sure to go to anarchistinvestor.substack.com to get involved, to be a subscriber, and to get in on that drawing. And I actually just finished today the 5th part of my Surviving the Next Financial Crisis playbook. So all 5 parts are now out there. They were the 5 posts this week. So I got to the finish line on that one. And today's post is about not just surviving, but thriving afterward. And so essentially growing your wealth, not just during, but after the crisis, and trying to take full advantage of any kind of rebound that we get. As anemic as they will probably be into the future, because that's what we seem to get out of our financial crises nowadays. But so with that, that's all I got. I'm going to be back here. I'm here every Monday through Friday at noon Eastern. It's another reason to be subscribed, because you get a notification when I go live at noon. So I would love to see you back here Monday at noon when I go live again. And yeah, that's all I really have. So I want to say thank you. I appreciate every single one of you. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I'm going to try and bring some more white pills next week, people. I'm going to scrounge up some white pills. We'll find them and we'll try and ingest those suckers as quick as possible, because I'm definitely in that black pill sort of mind right now. But hopefully a nice weekend will help things out. So with that, again, have a very fantastic weekend. I appreciate and love every single one of you. Peace.
Stuck in a system that just ain't right. Gonna tear it down. Gonna start a fight. Anarchy and numbers is my game. I'm the investor with no shame. Greed and corruption, that's the name of the game they play. It's all a shame. I won't play by their rules. I won't comply. Anarchy's the way. It's time to fly. Watch me grow.